Hello everyone and welcome to another video. In the previous video you learned about string concatenation, where you can use the plus operator to actually add strings together. A much more interesting form of math for some of you. Now, today we're going to be talking about an alternative to string concatenation, which is string formatting. Now I'm going to show you two examples. Okay, so we have, at the beginning we have three variables defined. And there are different types as well. So we have one called name, which stores my name, Kat. And then we have our age, which is 16. And that's an integer, by the way, not a string. And then finally, we have a final variable called programming. And so, line 5 of this code, we use string concatenation to kind of combine the string together, right? And of course, this is similar to the example that Keenan showed you in the previous video, where we do string age so that we can convert 16 into the string version of 16, and then we can concatenate it all together. But you might be wondering, what is line 7? Now, programmers always like to find a way, as even the Python developers themselves like to find a way to make things easy for programmers, right? They try to find more efficient ways of doing things. And so doing this, name plus, and then put spaces around the is plus, age plus, and all those pluses can get really annoying, especially when you have a huge string to format, like maybe a whole paragraph, and you need to put like 10 variables in there. That's going to take forever. Now, line 7 is the exact same thing as line 5, except instead of, name, we're just using these curly brackets. And you might see where this is going. But what about if there was a way that we could just pass in name, age, and hobby, and it would just literally paste itself into these curly brackets? So curly brackets here is replaced by name, curly brackets, the second curly brackets is replaced by the string of age, of course, and the last curly brackets is replaced by hobby. That's what formatting is. You make an entire string, right? And then you place placeholders along your string, and then you replace them with all of the variables that you want to replace these curly braces with. We're going to see an example soon. Okay, so we're in the programming part of this section, and as you can see, we have the same variables initialized and almost the same concatenation statement. I just added an exclamation mark point, and if we run this, it should give us Kat is 16 and likes programming, which is a true statement. But yeah, so this is concatenation. Now I'm going to show you what I meant by the formatting, right? So there are two ways of doing formatting. They are very similar in the fact that they use curly braces and they replace those curly braces with variables, but they do it in a different way. One is more modern than the other. I'm just showing you both methods because I personally prefer the dot format method, but a lot of people like the f strings method. So you just have to choose whichever one you prefer. Both are valid and both are running the same amount of time. Okay, so this is how it should look like. I just had to fix the years old. And now we're going to print out another thing, the format function actually. So remember we used curly brackets and we said curly brackets is curly brackets years old and likes curly brackets exclamation mark. And so remember that we said that we wanted to, replace all of these three curly brackets with the variables, right? And so the way you do that is you use the format method, right? It's similar to a function. I'm not going to go over the difference between a method and a function right now, but think of it as a dot, right? You use string, whatever the string is, dot format, and you pass in the number of variables that you have curly brackets. If you pass in more or less, you will get an error. Let's try it. Name, age, hobby. And here's a really cool thing. You can pass in integers to this format function and it will automatically convert it into a string, right? You can pass in whatever you want. You can even pass in a decimal point and it'll automatically convert it to a string and then replace it. So you don't even have to do strh. That's another benefit. And if you run this, it should give us an identical output right here. Now what's going to happen if you type in name again? Nothing's going to happen per se because it didn't find a new place to keep name. So I actually retract my previous statement. It's fine if you have more parameters than you do have curly brackets, but it's not fine definitely if you have less parameters. Now this won't actually bring you up an error. but it will, if you think about it, leave this as a simple curly brackets. Oh boy. Okay, I was wrong twice. That's kind of sad. Let me read it. Okay, but remember, adding more is fine. Okay, but what about if you add less? You might think that, it's gonna run, but these curly brackets will still stay curly brackets, and that might be the case. But if we run this, we actually get an error, and the reason why is because the format function actually parses through this in a manner that it will actually replace all of these curly brackets with the correct parameters. Now, if the replacement index is not the exact same amount of parameters as this, right? It can be more, because after it goes through, the list of parameters we have, like name and age, if it goes through more of them, then, it'll just stop. If it has less parameters than it can, replace these curly brackets with, it will give you an error. You have to make sure you have an equal or a greater amount of parameters than the amount of curly brackets you have. Okay, so let's just put this back, run it, and boom. Now the F string. The F string, some people like this better. It's actually a relatively new thing, and basically it's a special type of string that's embedded into basic Python. The annoying thing is that Replit, for some reason, yeah, whenever you delete like these strings, okay, there you go. Yeah, so like I was saying, whenever you you do one like quotation mark and then you do another, and it'll bring 3 quotation marks. Replit's weird in this manner, and then when you delete like one, it'll delete 2. So you just have to kind of, yeah, there you go. Kind of work with it until you get 2 quotation marks. And then you have F double quotation marks, and inside the quotation marks, you just write it in a normal string. Hello, my name is Kat. And this would work as normal, right, if you ran this. But you can add as many variables as you want, again, using the curly format method. But I'll show you the difference here. As you can see, when we use curly brackets, it suddenly turns white, because when you put curly brackets instead of an F string, the F string is like, okay, he's gonna replace this part with a variable. So we're gonna have curly brackets is curly brackets years old and likes curly brackets exclamation mark. And then instead of doing dot format and the amount of arguments, right, you don't have to worry about not having the correct amount of arguments, because for every single curly brackets you have to replace it with whatever variable you're doing, right? And it's the same thing as the format function, but basically you can replace it with the variable. You don't even have to convert it to a string. It'll automatically do that for you. And if you run this, it should work. Yeah, identical outputs. Do you want to do F string? Go ahead. Do you want to do dot format? Be my guest. Do you want to do concatenation in this example? If you're a psychopath, sure. But doing dot format and F string is the way to go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one where we talk about libraries. Oh my god. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna restart from, I'm gonna restart from the format function. Oh my god, I messed up so bad. Okay,